Hail and well met, traveler. Welcome to the tavern. Did you know this is the place where more than half of the greatest adventures in history have begun? But before those adventurers took their first steps, they watched and calculated who would join their party. Why, look over there. There's a mighty barbarian from the Frozen Lands. Strong, mighty, full of honor and wisdom. I happen to know that one. They go by Matt Rossi. And look over there to the right. That woman working away on her mechanical dog. She's cunning, witty, and I've seen her bounce more than her fair share of ne'er-do-wells out of here before I can even blink. I happen to know that she goes by the name Liz Harper. And me? Oh, my name's Joe Perez. And I'll be your tavern keep. Welcome to Tavern Watch.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to your, I hope, favorite version of dungeon diving adjacent audio sensory input. Welcome to Tavern Watch. I am one of your humble tavern keepers, Joe Perez, and with me I have my wonderful co-owners of this establishment. As always, we have Liz Harper.
Hello.
We have Matt Rossi.
Greetings.
And our recent partner who's moving from silent to one quarter owner of this, I think at this point, I think it's fair to say, is Phil. How you doing, Phil?
Good. I'm in the corner of the tavern. I probably have a quest for you.
Classic
How come
Strider
nobody ever
energy.
goes up to that guy?
I'm gonna have to rework the intro now.
They've all out leveled it.
All right. Well, I guess we're going to start with the classics here because these are the three that I like to open up every show with because I think they make sense. And it's the three questions. What are you reading? What are you playing? And what are you looking forward to? And we'll just kind of go around the table. We'll start with Liz.
Man, I'm having a lousy tabletop time right now because my the game I was playing has Dolmenwood has kind of fallen apart because one of the players backed out, and then everyone's busy. It's that endless challenge of all games is that we're all adults with very busy schedules, and if one thing falls apart, then suddenly you're just not playing any tabletop games. I am trying to read up on Masks, which we're playing very soon. It's still kind of a big question mark mystery in my head. I'm just not up on the system. So, but that is part of my reading. Also, Daggerheart just came out this week, so I'm reading up on that. I like it, but it's a very, very large, very thick book, and I'm trying to read Masks at the same time, and I have a library book behind me that's due next week. So it's where do you find that read all of these things at once? That's my challenge. That's probably all of our challenges.
It is definitely always the challenge. Phil.
Let's see. So I've been brushing up on Masks again because it's been a long time since I ran it. But it's like riding a bicycle. It'll come back to me eventually. My copy of Daggerheart arrived, but it's still sitting in the box because I also, on a whim, after watching an extremely effusive review of it, ordered the 2 core books for Delta Green. And
yes!
So I've been reading up on Delta Green recently. That is a system. That is a little bit. The system itself is not bad. Like it's it's pretty much Chaosium D100 basic role playing. You kind of get used to it, but the setting is so well thought out and cool, and I'm having a lot of fun reading up on that.
It's one of their oldest settings too. Like it's as old as Cthulhu for them. Yeah,
it's wild seeing like the modern reimagining where it's just like the inciting incident for their whole history is the Innsmouth, the Innsmouth incident, the Deep Ones, etc., and then it just weaves it forward through so much of modern history, and it's very cool to read. I've actually almost enjoyed reading that part of the Keeper's Guide more than I skimmed the Player's Guide. I was like, yeah, I get this. Roll some stats, pick some skill packages, roll under. I get it. I was like, now I'm going to read 100 or more pages of extremely in-depth settings stuff. So, and my A traveler game is on kind of it's not a hiatus, but it's like we only get to play about once a month because 2 of our players have kids, and scheduling stuff with parents who have kids in the summer is difficult. But I am in the midst of rolling up a character for a West Marches style online D&D 5e game, in which I am playing a Tabaxi rogue who is definitely not Puss in Boots. The whole thing is kind of fairy tale inspired, so
And
that's what I'm up to.
Matt, you're up next. What are you doing? What are you reading?
In terms of what I'm reading, I'm currently reading Mary Beard's History of Rome, SPQR, which is, for this by the Senate, and it stands for Senatus Populacis Quae Romani, which is like, literally for the Senate and people of Rome. And it's still on the, like, if you go to Rome right now and you look at the sewer caps or whatever, that's still there. The civil government of Rome still uses SPQR. It dates back all the way to like the founding of Rome. And the reason I'm reading it is purely because it's kind of funny that Phil mentioned the Chaosium D100 system, because they had a contest a while back and I entered it. I knowing I wouldn't win because I did not have the ability to finish the idea I had, but I did have an idea for a game, a campaign setting for them, and that's what they wanted, so I entered. I only got about 20 pages written, but ever since I've been tinkering with it for different systems, and so I was doing research on that. In terms of stuff for gaming, I've been playing video game wise. I've been playing Doom over and over again, and going, oh my word, I'm addicted to this. And I've just picked up the Exalted Essence book. I don't know if you guys remember, like we ran an Essence an Exalted game, I think a year or so, maybe 2 years ago now.
It was a while.
I think it's been longer than that. I think it's been much longer than that. But yes, I remember it.
Yeah, I know the game itself predates me, but I have read Essence. It's interesting.
It is interesting because as I was talking to my wife about this, because my wife and I, when I first joined the Kickstarter, I don't join many Kickstarters because money, but I joined the Kickstarter for Exalted 3rd Edition. The book showed up, and my wife was like, "What is that? Like, is this a coffee table? What did you order?" And I opened it, and it was the book. And she's like, that's twice the size of any other book you have. Like, it is enormous. So I thought the Essence edition would be smaller. And it is smaller in much the same way that K2 is smaller than Mount Everest, but is still huge. This thing's 300 and something pages for their distilled, easy to run version of Exalted. And the worst part is that's apt. It is distilled and easier to run than Exalted, because Exalted is really complicated. But I like it. I do like it, but it's making me really think about the whole concept of PBTA games and why I like that kind of, Forged in the Dark or PTA or Lumen, powered by Lumen. Why do I like those systems? I like those systems because I can just run a bloody game. This thing is 300 pages before I could even think about it. And this is literally the Cliff's Notes version of the game. And it's like, yikes. So yeah, that's been me the past few days, just having that realization that, like, mentioning Chaosium's basic role-playing, it's like, that used to be considered one of the heaviest, crunchiest systems out there. Now it's like, oh yeah, just you roll percentile dice. Great. That's yeah. Let's go. That's nothing. That's so easy compared to this thing, like where, okay, I don't even know how this system works, boy. So yeah, I that's been me. That's then this whole week for me has just been between like real life stuff. I guess what I'm looking forward to, though, I don't really have anything I'm looking forward to right now. There's a lot of stuff that's in the. If I had to say anything, it would probably be Outgunned Superheroes, which we're possibly going to talk about today. But otherwise, I haven't really got anything on my radar, just because most of it's already out. I've also been super excited about the Mask game, but I feel like people know that about me.
Yeah, and as far as my end is concerned, reading, I'm just going back through the Masks book because I am looking forward to our Masks game, which at the time of this recording we'll be doing the week after this recording, so I'm excited for that. It's been a very long time since I've played Masks, and the contrary to popular belief, I had to go and rebuy the book. I still haven't found the other book, so I'm 90% sure I know what happened to it. So that mystery has been solved. And the playing thing, I'm actually not in an active game right now, and it's really weird to say that because it's been a long time since I've just not had a ongoing game, and I don't know what I want to play long term to replace it or what I want to try to do. I do know that I don't want to DM for a little bit because I have the eternal DM syndrome, and multiple people here I'm sure absolutely know how that feels.
No one in this room understands
Yeah.
it.
But it's one of those things where, like, every time we go to sit down with a group of people, it's always I'm the one that winds up having to run because nobody can, make a decision, or nobody wants to, and everybody wants to be a player. I'd like to be a player for a while, just to have sort of that freedom and have sort of like, don't get me wrong, like I'm very much team collaborative storytelling, but it's different when you are just managing your own character and then having influence on the world versus running the world and inputting the influence from the characters, right? So hopefully in the near future, I will find a game to settle into. I'm thinking I want it to be something more sci-fi related because it's been a long time since I've done a cyberpunk or a Shadowrun or even like a Starfinder-esque game. And I'd like to do more than a one-shot in that for a while because everybody's default is fantasy, and it's hard to like. And not that I don't like it, but you get tired of it after a while, and you want to go back to something a little bit different, or palate cleanser. That's where I'm at.
I feel you. I'm big on sci-fi over fantasy, but as you say, it's kind of the default in a lot of gaming worlds.
Yeah, and I mean a lot of that has to owe to like D&D, right? Like so D&D being the default is fantasy, right? So it's, and a lot of people when they talk about tabletop role-playing games, they default to D&D. And so there's this weird mentality that, and I don't think it's a conscious choice, but everybody sort of just defaults to fantasy. But yeah, it is what it is, and we'll see what happens. But speaking of games that people are excited about or potentially is skewing towards the more fantastical, Liz, and you guys, I'm going to let you loose on this one because Daggerheart released, and there are a lot of people who are extremely excited about it, and I'd like to let them talk about it. So why don't you go ahead?
I think what interests me most about Daggerheart, and it's unfortunately the things that you aren't going to see. We're planning on running a Daggerheart game after the Masks game, if we can get it all scheduled out. And it's something you're not really going to see very much of in a one-shot, is that Daggerheart is very much about collaborative world building. And I've already seen other games kind of, well, that's the wrong word, but like one of the things I really thought was interesting in Daggerheart, you start off, you make your character, and then you kind of go around the table and ask questions of the other characters to establish relationships. And that was something really fun. We did play Daggerheart during the beta, and that came out a lot of weird things. I mean, I think the thing about Daggerheart is this is kind of like a greatest hits of a lot of other games. This is a lot of features that we like from other places pulled together. So it's a lot of building the world. There's a lot of world building. Like, okay, so you say you say your character came from a magical mountain full of dragons. Okay, well now the world has a magical mountain full of dragons. And these are things that you can do in any game. These are things that are maybe part of other game rules and encouraged by other games. But it's really, this feels like a tool book for creating worlds more than just a game. It feels like, I think possibly its weakest element is that it tries to build its own fantasy setting, even though it's made by creators who are really good at that sort of thing. But what really interests me is the way it is the push to making you build and create your own worlds and stories. And that's something I think you're going to see less of when we run it in a one-shot, because you don't see the kind of character development, the kind of world development that this book encourages. And I kind of wonder if you're going to see that in home games too, because this is something made for like big long-term storytelling. And, we're just sitting here talking about how hard it is to keep a game going, particularly during the summer when people are busy. So, I mean, I'm interested to see how this plays out. I think it's a fun system, but I feel like it's less of a game and more of like a toolbox for a game. Does that make sense? Because if you look at something like Masks has a very clear concept, and you could tell all sorts of stories with it. But it's like, okay, we're talking about young superheroes. We're telling this kind of story. Or if you look at Blades in the Dark, it's got its whole setting baked into it. You're this criminal group, and you're maybe this kind or that kind or that kind. But it's baked in that this is the kind of story you're telling. Or Candala Obscura, which is all Victorian creepiness. Or Call of Cthulhu, which is Cthulhu-ish. You know, they kind of have the world and the game are kind of baked together. This doesn't feel as much like that. It feels like it's a toolkit for building out your own favorite kind of fantasy world. And when we run it, I'd like to run it in... It has several settings in the back of it that you can go through and pick out something maybe to inspire you. And it has one called Motherboard, which makes me think very much of Horizon Zero Dawn, a world full of these ancient technological works that people are using to build and create or live amongst, even though they don't understand them, or they may only understand them a little. So I think we're going to be doing something in that vein when we run the game. Just have to think up a story, because I asked when everyone could play it, and everyone's gone for the earliest possible time so far. So I'll have to see how that goes. But it feels like a toolkit more than a game. I don't know how the rest of y'all think about it. Phil, you did run our game when we played it during playtesting. What do you think? What do you think now that it's out?
Yeah, I mean, it's so we have a word for what you're describing, and it's fantasy heartbreaker, and people have been writing them since the 70s. It's I agree. Like the one thing that I will say about it is I've never seen a game so clearly wear its heart on its sleeve and say, these are the parts of these other games that I really like. Like, coming from the Critical Role, they like in-depth storytelling. And so it's like, we have a large part of the book where, the rules are going to kind of get out of your way and let you do collaborative storytelling. But also we actually enjoy the crunchy combat part, but not as in-depth as something like a D&D. And so it's like, and we're going to have the, the crunchy combat and the defined abilities and the optional initiative order, which I recommend everyone use if you're playing this game. But then the card system limits the total amount of actual options you have. So even as characters, if you play these characters for years, I ran a D&D 5e game where characters got up to 14th level, and sometimes they were just lost in the options they had available in combat, except for our fighter. But with this, you still end up with a limited subset of abilities, and you get kind of that, the customization thing. It's like, what cards am I bringing out for whatever session we're doing today, etc. But I said I would like to see it more now that it's in its final form. I want to see how it plays. I'm looking forward to being on the other side of the screen for it, because I did have a lot of fun, just jotting up characters, but obviously didn't actually get to play any of them. But I don't know. I'm of two minds. I think it's cool. I don't know if it's going to be my go-to fantasy game of choice, but I do applaud the effort to make something that takes the parts of a game that obviously Matt Mercer and crew really like and make it into a comprehensive product. Also, the art is really freaking pretty. Holy cow, it's so good.
It's a beautiful book. It's beautiful.
Yeah, that is one, between this and D&D 5e, we are in an era of extremely pretty fantasy games. So I'm very happy about that, just as a minor aside. So
Matt?
I like it because I'm pretty sure it's going to put more pressure on D&D, and that's what I want. Mm-hmm. One of the things I love, right now, I'm a big Pathfinder / Starfinder guy. I am getting Starfinder as soon as I can, even though I don't know how I'm going to pay for it, but whatever. I have blood, I can sell it. In all sincerity, I really want to run a Starfinder game, but I've been looking at this and thinking to myself, I could do Star Wars with this so easily.
Yeah,
and Star Wars it's a weird thing. If you look at fantasy versus science fiction versus whatever, I did a convention back in 2000. One of the conversations we were having is what is science fiction versus what is fantasy. And the first person who talked a lot about how science fiction is grounded in real physics. And I said, no, some science fiction is grounded in real physics. But all of it, I have never seen science fiction that didn't cheat real physics somewhere. And that I'm right now, I'll tell you, The Martian, he cheats. He doesn't cheat much. He cheats as little as he can, but he cheats because it's almost impossible.
A little.
Due to the way time flows, it's almost impossible in fiction to constrain it the way real time goes. You can't just sit there and wait for 12 hours and then pick the book up. Well, yes, you could if you really wanted to, but you can't really. And for me, what's really interesting about Daggerheart as a setting is that it doesn't have a setting. It has like 5. It's very GURPS-like in that way. Like one of the things I loved about GURPS as a kid was the fact that I literally have, there's like 30 books up on my bookshelf of alternate GURPS settings. And are all of them good? Yes. Actually, all of those books are good. They're all very crunchy books that are all very much about specific things, but they're all very useful, and I still use them even though I haven't run a GURPS campaign in 15 years. I still use the books when I run other things. Daggerheart is a setting where it's a game, I keep saying setting, but it's a game where I could really imagine just only homebrewing.
Mhm.
Like I would never run any of their settings. I don't have to. I would just homebrew, which is what I used D&D for years. And I'm going to let you guys in on a little secret. It's excruciatingly painful to homebrew your D&D campaign. I mean, not that it's not excruciatingly painful because D&D is hostile to that sort of thing. It's excruciatingly painful because nobody understands that's what you're doing. And so they'll tell you, oh, well, you can't do that with hobgoblins because of this book. I'm like, I can do anything I want with hobgoblins. I can do anything I want with any of it. In my campaign, hobgoblins can be lawful good. That's entirely up to me. And it's always been the case for every game, period. But people don't get it for D&D because D&D has always been the 800-pound gorilla, and everybody thinks they know what it is, even people who've never played it. And Daggerheart doesn't have preconceptions yet. The only preconceptions people are going to have is what Matt Mercer says. And he's really, it seems like a nice guy. I don't know him personally. He seems like a nice guy. He seems like genuinely enthused and enthusiastic and interested in what he's saying. But it's much easier to ignore one guy than it is to ignore everybody. And that's what I really love about this is there's enough here. I'm looking at the book right now because as we were talking, I picked it up on DriveThruRPG because I had some money left in the account. And I love that I can go to the back and they have all like a breakdown, like little card thing of each playable ancestry. And I'm looking at them going, okay, I can easily say that this is some Star Wars race. This would take me like 10 seconds. The Tranks, droids, Dracana, whatever Bosk was, dwarf, short guy. I mean, it's not hard, and there's not a lot of real rules to a lot of stuff that you expect there to be a lot of rules about. You know, like if I wanted to do, I've actually saw online once somebody as a joke was like, "What if Anakin Skywalker's ship crashed in Game of Thrones?" And I was like, I could run that game. I could straight up have Anakin Skywalker just stepping off his crash ship going, what is wrong with all you people? And force pushing, hobgoblins everywhere or whatever they're called, the White Walkers. So yeah, that's what I'm looking forward to this is pretty effing flexible. Now, I have been also looking into it for flaws, and I have found a few. I'm not going to talk about them right now because I'm actually sitting down and thinking about how to break it all down. But I will also say one of the things they did that endeared me to it before we stop and move on to something else is that it has world maps, and I can easily strip mine them and use them for other things. Every time your RPG has stuff like this in it that can be strip mined and used for other things, I love you because running a game, even a homebrew game, it's a lot of time work. There's a lot of time you have to spend on stuff. Anything you can do to make that time easier, like the time Joe, I'm sorry, I haven't brought this up in a while, but I'm going to have to now. Like the time my D&D campaign decided they weren't going to go to my floating magical city. So I had to pull a pirate ship out of my butt. And I basically pulled it out of a spaceship from a really old Dark Matter book that I have over there. So yeah, I love it when games do that. I like this game for doing it and doing it extremely beautifully, as Phil pointed out earlier. I do like the game. I think it is. It's not like It's not breaking my mind. It's not really tremendously original when you get right down to it, but I don't care.
Yeah, and I'm the dissenting voice. I don't like the game. Right? And the reason I don't like the game is for a lot of the reasons that you guys seem to enjoy the game. And these are just my thoughts and my opinions, so please, if you're listening at home, don't come at me. It doesn't do anything that any other game doesn't do, and it doesn't do them better than those other games already. And while
those are both true points, by the way, I'm not disagreeing with you in the slightest.
Thank you. Which, if a game borrows from something else, my expectation is that it will iterate upon it or improve on it or do a spin on it in some way, and I don't see that here. The other thing is that the rules in what it wants to be seem to almost be at conflict with each other because it's trying to be a few different things, like the combat being crunchy versus the narrative being the focus. And a lot of times those are at odds with each other just from a game design perspective. I'm not saying that it can't work, but those are generally two elements that usually are at odds with each other. The other criticism that I have of it, and again, I'm not saying this is a bad game or a bad set of rules or a bad system or anything by any of those means, is that this is very much streamer the game. And I applaud the folks at Critical Role for making the game that they wanted to stream, because that's what this is. And the problem that I see already as a retailer is that people are picking up this book expecting to run Critical Role stuff and not realizing how much work they actually have to put into developing the world and collaborative storytelling. And so there's an element of it where I've already had people buy this book and have already gone back to have already gone back to Pathfinder because they've read it. They thought it was going to be something it wasn't. They thought it was going to be like, and I'm going to throw this out there again, that I can just play Critical Role. I don't want to do all this work. And again, I'm not saying that it's a bad system. It's just not doing anything for me that I can't do with anything that I already own. And it doesn't do it better than any of those. And in fact, some of it, I think it does it worse just because of the nature of how things are set up. So for those that are going to enjoy it, I fully hope they do. But it's just, I can't, it's just not, Daggerheart does not capture my heart, right? It doesn't endear itself to me in any way, shape, or form, aside from it being a very pretty book. And I hope that it is successful, because I do want more competition in the area and I do want people to enjoy it. But yeah, like you're saying that you can run Star Wars in it. You can. I can run Star Wars in Modiphius. I can run Star Wars in Essence. I can run Star Wars in Powered by the Apocalypse. I can run Star Wars in the Universal Role-Playing Game. All of these things can also do the same thing. You're talking about reskinning some of the cards to do specific things. I don't have to do that in other games. Other games just give you the framework and say, here you go. You don't have to, you can apply whatever skin you want to it. You don't have to rework something else to be something else. Here's just the framework. Just call it whatever you, and it's not something that I wanted to be really excited about it. And when we were doing the play test, I think I voiced a lot of similar concerns too. I know Phil and I had talked about this offline, where my biggest gripe with combat at the time was like, you can't not have an initiative system or a framework to have rules for it, at least in my opinion. Otherwise, unless you have a table of very experienced players, it's not going to move. And again, because it's a game developed for people who know what they're doing and who are going to be streaming and making content off of this, they know what they're doing, so they don't have to worry about that. But the average person who is just used to D&D, or a person who's really new to tabletop role-playing games and maybe isn't necessarily in so deep to the role-playing section, is going to feel a wash in that sometimes. So those are my criticisms of it. And again, I'm not going to say that it's a bad game. This is one of those things where it's just like, I just don't like it. And I'm happy for people that do.
See, I will say this one thing before I move on, but I get why you're saying that about how I can do this with other games. The thing is that for a lot of people, this will be the first game they get that can do all that.
Sure, if they stay
and
with
that can do it easily. If they stay with it, but I really want to put this point in there. I like this because it isn't necessarily better at anything that it does. You know what? To use the best example I can think of, World of Warcraft is actually worse at everything that it did than any other game in the market at the time.
No, that is incorrect. It did.
I
This is a topic for another story.
We could
but
argue
I will argue that it was better than EverQuest, which is why it was so successful.
I don't think it really was for people who played EverQuest. But regardless, the fact that it does so much, and I sat down and realized I could stop using 6 different games because I had this one. It doesn't mean I will, but I could. And that I think is important. Although I do think you are spot on in a lot of your other criticisms. Like I think you're totally right about it being a system that kind of goes, if you don't know what you're doing, especially with initiative, it just it's open to abuse in the initiative thing. I think that's why when Phil says you have to use the optional, initiative rules, he's not wrong. That is a big problem. And I don't want to say that your criticisms are not valid, because a lot of them are things I'm thinking. I think I have more enthusiasm for it than you do, because you're more focused on how it can go wrong, and you have to be, because you are selling this to people.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I totally get that. I wanted to say that whilst I don't agree with it entirely, I do think you have a lot of good points there. I do think my perspective would be different. Is what works.
And I do think my perspective would be different if I wasn't somebody who was a retailer literally selling this to people and trying to explain it to people and watching reaction in real time, right? Like, I think I might be more in your camp if I didn't have that perspective. So I agree with you.
I think it's very telling that some of us have picked up this book and thought about, this is what we could do with this book. I think the book has a very poor, just initial hook, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I keep wanting to compare it to Blades of the Dark because there are a lot of gameplay similarities. And if you talk about, you want to play Blades in the Dark, well, did you ever want to play Dishonored and be part of a criminal syndicate in a magic-infused world of darkness? You're going to hear that and you're going to be like, yeah! And then if you go, hey, you want to play Daggerheart? Well, what's it about?
It's about whatever you want it to be, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, you're gonna have to come with a better game pitch than that. Yeah, you're absolutely correct.
Exactly. So, I mean, a lot of games have that big hook right there. Daggerheart doesn't feel like it has that, but I look at this book and I see a toolkit for running all sorts of games. And I think it's a really good book for just how to play tabletop games, particularly how to run tabletop games. Not necessarily even thinking about Daggerheart. It has sections on how to run a one-shot versus how to structure a campaign. It has all of these just advice that is designed for Daggerheart, but is really, I think, applicable for other games, for DMing and for playing. So I really love this book, but I do see it as something of a toolkit for building and for learning, because I have been DMing games. I haven't been doing it for very long. So I look at this book and I say, oh, wow, this is some really good advice. And it may have come from other places. It almost certainly did. This book takes inspiration from all over the place. Yeah, but I think it's a useful book. I agree with everyone that it's maybe it doesn't have a hook.
But that's, I think, part of the problem, though, too, right? Is it's not being sold as a game toolkit. It's not being advertised as a game toolkit. All of the advertising is the new game from the makers of Critical Role, right? It's being sold as a complete game out of the box. In to a lot of it is, but I think that is why some people are picking it up and maybe being disappointed, because I think you're more right than it being a game in of its own, is that it is a very useful toolkit for folks that are, branching out, or maybe that haven't had that experience or don't own, 18,000 bookshelves full of RPG books like the rest of us do. I'm not looking forward to moving those.
But I had to move them from California to Canada. That was the worst experience I've ever had with a moving company.
I mean, yeah, these are hefty box sets. I don't look forward to Joe getting a shipment of these at the store, even if it's only like 4 or 5.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, we've sold out all the copies that we got in, but it's one of those things where like the number of people that put it back down after I explained it exactly as Liz did and went and picked up Pathfinder or something else is not insignificant.
Which is funny because Pathfinder is exactly the same.
No, it isn't. It is in that any you pick up a tabletop RPG game of any kind, even Blades in the Dark, even like you name a Powered by the Apocalypse one. Ultimately, you could do a lot of the same stuff with it, like you just pointed out. But they have a hook,
and they have a hook sometimes. Like Pathfinder's hook is You like fantasy? We have fantasy. In fact, the same problem I have with D&D is that D&D's hook is just, we do fantasy stuff.
I agree.
And it's enough for people. Daggerheart doesn't have that hook only because they're trying something. Part of the fact is they always have the campaign marketing based around the Critical Role connection.
Yes.
Because Critical Role has gone from being a game that streamed, once a week for a while into a phenomenon that I don't think even its creators understand, and they've admitted that they don't. Like, when you see them on a video going, I didn't think this was going to happen. When they decided, we'll do a Kickstarter for our animated series, and then they're like, what happened? You don't get they're on the back of the tiger and they have no idea what they're doing.
Which is true, but the difference with games like D&D though, and I want to move on from this after this, but like the thing that Pathfinder has, the thing that D&D has, the thing that a lot of the big names in the industry have, is a world that already exists. So a person who wants to run a game and isn't maybe necessarily comfortable building a world from scratch, if it says, they already have a system of deities, they already have towns, they already have maps, they already have adventures I can run. Okay, this makes it easier for me. I'm going to go ahead and grab that, versus I have to sit down at a table and everybody builds the world. We have to build this from scratch. It reminds me a lot of, and I don't know if I'm the only person who ever bought these books. I'm pretty sure Matt may have. I have the Dresden Files role playing game. And
I hate the Dresden Files with a fiery passion. I'll never read it. No, I don't own those books.
So I own the books for the tabletop game, but it's Fate, and it's the whole purpose of Fate is collective world building. The books don't let you really make a character; you make a city, and your city is the character. And it failed because of that, in a lot of regards, because people don't necessarily feel comfortable doing that unless they're more experienced. And I think that's where the gray area. You have a lot of people who are newbies or newish to the game systems or to tabletop role playing in general that potentially get put off by too much freedom. And Liz and I had this conversation way long ago when I first started talking about Powered by the Apocalypse on the website, right? It's scary to people with how much freedom and can be a turnoff to people because there's not a set of rigid rules to follow. So it's a balancing act. And again, I wish Daggerheart success. I hope that it does change or become a disruptive pebble in the pool of the tabletop role-playing space that inspires others to, look elsewhere or see what else is out there. So, but everybody's points are valid. Go ahead.
I do want to make one clarification here, which is that the book does have 6 different campaign settings in the book, which are laid out. So it's not that there's no setting at all and you have to do everything. There are settings and story hooks and ideas, but I think it does expect you to build on them more than, say, if you had bought a D&D adventure. If you want to play Critical Role the game, you should probably go buy the D&D book, Call of the Netherdeep, which a few years old by now, because that is an adventure that puts everything together and in front of you. This has worlds that you can build in.
Yeah, but I think we move on from there. Thank you very much for your thoughts on Daggerheart. I appreciate the other insights because, man, I feel like a negative Nancy. So I guess we'll move on. So did you know that Pathfinder has a dating sim card game coming out?
I only knew that because I'd read the article.
Yep.
I read the link.
I opened the link when this showed up in our show notes, and I'm still baffled by its existence.
I am too. I only found it randomly because I have a bunch of news scrapers that go and look for tabletop stuff, and this popped up, and I'm just like, wait, what? So apparently in October, in theory, we'll be able to pre-order this. But it's a card game, a card building game or deck building game where you're dating monsters, oozes, dragons, vampires.
As soon as I saw this, you know what I did?
What's that?
I really thought about my experience playing both Kingmaker and Wrath of the Righteous on the video when Owlcat made these TTRPGs.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, I just got done spending a lot of money buying these games and playing these games that are essentially dating sims.
Yeah.
and you can date various kinds of monsters in them, especially Wrath of the Righteous, where you can hook up with demons, the undead, cursed half monster people and the scariest monster of all, the completely half-elven, nothing weird about her, homicidal serial killer that just can be in your group. So yeah, this doesn't surprise me. It surprised me when they went so for it. I'm like, yeah, no, that's pretty much my experience with those games. Like, yeah, I guess I didn't see it coming, but I really should have.
It reminds me a lot of. It reminds me a lot of Monster Prom, like Pathfinder Monster Prom. That's what it reminds me.
Or it could be Monster Hearts, for God's sake. You know.
Oh, I don't think there's going to be anywhere near that much drama. This pretty much is a card game about courting monsters.
Yeah. The fact that it may plays in about 30 minutes, yeah, it's definitely a Monster Hearts, but it's still interesting to me.
Yeah, I wonder if in order to pre-order a copy to steal a turn of phrase from fellow staff writer Chris Chesno, I wonder if you're going to need to print out your Monster Lover license in order to pre-order a copy.
A good phrase modification there.
Thank you. Yeah, this is a bizarre little product.
I mean, don't get me wrong, this is something I'm probably going to buy. Yeah. But like it is bizarre, it came out of nowhere, but I'm all for it. Keep it up, Paizo.
I'll take any game that's not expensive and plays in 30 minutes, honestly. This is the kind of thing you take to a game night and go, hey, who wants to play a game about romancing vampires?
Yep,
and dragons / oozes.
And I think that's a huge
whatever you're into, man.
Whatever you're into.
And I think that's a huge selling point for it, though, too, right? Like it's a game that plays quickly. It plays in 30 minutes, and it can play 2 to 6 players, right, or 3 to 6 players. So like
2 to 6.
2 to 6. There's 2 to 6 on the
real
page,
girl. Yeah.
Yeah, it strikes me as the game you break out while you're waiting on the last few people to arrive to the game.
Yeah, exactly. And for that alone, I'm going to love it. From there, I think we'll just move on real quick to Outgunned, which I think Matt added. So I'll let him chat about it.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys know about Outgunned. It's already out. Free League Publishing does it. It's kind of as a game, it is the game of, hey, you saw people do crazy things in a movie. Now you can do that in your game. Mm-hmm. If you played Feng Shui, you'd recognize a lot of this. It doesn't, rule-wise, it doesn't play like Feng Shui, but you get the feeling. It's like how the way Feng Shui was for like Hong Kong action RPG, action role-playing game types feelings in the 90s and 2000s. This game is now for when you go to a movie and you're like, Vin Diesel could not possibly hold on to that car with his fingernails like this. It's not, but we're going with it. We're going with Vin Diesel shooting his car into another building to escape a tidal wave. That's what we're doing. It's pretty much that game. And they have noticed the same thing that everybody has noticed, that there's a lot of superhero movies. And as a result, we've got Outgunned Superheroes coming out, it's both an expansion for Outgunned and it is its own game. Like, you don't have to buy Outgunned to play this. You just buy this. I had not thought it was going to be something that I really worried about too much. Basically, they put out a Backerkit saying, hey, we just need like 10,000 euros to get this made. And it's already beyond 300,000 euros. Mm-hmm. And got like a month to go. And it's one of those situations where I'm like, well, hello, I was not expecting that. The thing is that I think a superhero RPG is kind of always dicey. And I say this as a guy who loves superhero RPGs and superheroes in general. But people, they don't necessarily know what to do with any game that takes it in a direction that we haven't already seen. Like, I don't know if anyone here remembers Brave New World, which was the superhero RPG made by the guys who at the time were also making Deadlands. Mm-hmm. And that later on they sold it because they were like, does anyone want this? We can't get anyone to buy these because it was so weird and different. And so nobody wanted to play it. And they were like, we thought people would love it because, we do Deadlands, the game that mixes up cowboys and monsters. So we thought people would be totally on board with magical superheroes that, fought the Nazis, but are now in a dystopian, hellscape. But no. So I wasn't expecting to see, but the support I've seen for it, especially in the amount of time I've seen for it, was so wild that I went and looked it up. And I think it's got a chance of making it because it just straight up embraces superhero comics and superhero movies. Yeah. And especially superhero movies. It just embraces that. Everything that's weird about superhero movies, it's like, yes, we want more of that. Aliens show up for not really well-established reason. Cool. Superheroes brawl in the middle of a small town and blow things up. Cool. Emotional angst and anxiety between a bunch of people who aren't really superheroes but find themselves in a super team. Yeah, cool. We more of that. Batman. Yes. If you've seen the Batman movie, we want you to help you do that. Even if it doesn't make any sense. Even if you have Robert Pattinson as Batman, we don't care. By the way, the Robert Pattinson Batman is surprisingly. But yeah, so that's the game. I liked it. Looking at what they were offering, what they're going to be doing. I think it has the possibility to work. I don't think it's going to become a household name because, I mean, really, Outgunned is not that big a game. This is just the nature of the beast. This is a niche market that supporters love it enough to give them tons of money.
It will. I mean, I think if you've never played Outgunned, and I don't think we've talked about Outgunned in general on this podcast, it's a really cool system.
Yeah, it's like I said, I didn't mention Feng Shui because I didn't like it. Feng Shui is one of my favorite games of all time.
I absolutely.
The fact that Outgunned is even close to it, no, it's actually a lot of fun.
But I just want to call it out because it uses a system called the Director's Cut. And the Director's Cut system is basically using small pools of 6-sided dice, and you determine the outcome of your hero's action, but you're not rolling for like the highest or lowest possible number. You're rolling for sets of numbers, almost like Yahtzee. And like that determines what happens. And the idea that this game was initially kicked off with, and I believe they called out like games like movies like James Bond, Atomic Blonde, Kingsman, Ocean's 11, Hot Fuzz, John Wick, Die Hard, True Lies. Like
John Wick is actually a really good example too. I think John Wick is one of the best ones for what this system is like.
And the other interesting thing about it though too is this is one of those few games that works really, really, really well with one game runner and one player because of the very nature of it. But the fact that they're doing the superhero stuff, I actually didn't know they were doing that until Matt put it in here. Like this might be me breaking my Kickstarter rule, and I might have to back this.
See, I've seen ads for this Kickstarter everywhere, but I had never heard of Outgunned before this happened. And then after that, I started seeing lots of reviews popping up for their previous expansion / game, Outgunned Adventure.
Outgunned Adventure is really good if you like the pulse.
Yeah, which is like your Mummy or your Indiana Jones. So and it looked really cool. This just sounds fun. I don't know if I'm gonna back it, but I do want to play it sometime when Matt inevitably backs it.
If I can find the money.
Or I will be absolutely doing that as well.
Sure, yeah.
The other thing that I think is cool is like they also have these things called the Action Flicks books, which is essentially they make movie themes that you can go through. So like the first one I think was like Star Raiders, which was, maybe Star Wars, Rising Dragon, which, maybe is The Last Dragon, Cloak and Dagger, Great Powers, which is their original superpower one, which was very, very popular. It was in the first Action Flicks book, which then led to this apparent. Weirder Things. Gee, sound familiar? Kind of Magic, Killing Aliens, Ghost Hunters, Midnight Wars, Neon Noir. Like all these things are like, what they are when you see them, and they're based off of movies and genres that you very likely know. And they just give you, here's what you need to run it. Here's what you need to do it. Like I am really interested in this because I love cinematic games, but I just think it's really, and I'm going to let Liz weigh in if she has any opinions.
I'm afraid I do not have any unique opinions. I think y'all have talked this one out.
Yeah. So I think we'll go ahead and move on we don't have a whole lot of time, but I think that this one is really interesting. Barnes and Noble. I always want to put an extra S on there. Barnes and Noble actually leaked 2 new books from Paizo. One for Pathfinder and one for Starfinder, which I think is interesting. And it was only noticed because they went up for pre-order on their website, which was the Draconic Index for Pathfinder and the Alien Core 2 book for Starfinder. So just a little bit of tidbit. So we're getting more books for those settings, which I don't think is a surprise for anybody. But I think it was a surprise to Paizo that it got outed that quick.
Yeah, especially since I don't think Starfinder 2nd edition is actually up for sale yet.
No, not yet.
No. So it is surprised to see Alien Core 2 being leaked. They haven't even had Alien Core 1 yet, guys.
But it makes me me think that we're going to see Starfinder 2 sooner than later, right?
It definitely feels like they're ready to. They're basically waiting for, I think, a show. Like my guess is either Gen Con or Origins. I don't know if Origins has already been missed, right? They already happened.
I thought Origins was usually in June, but I haven't.
Yeah,
been
then it's
tracking
likely
it.
either Origins or Gen Con.
Origins,
Gen Con
Origins
is
is in June.
yeah,
18th to 22nd.
and Gen Con's July, end of July into
So
August.
yeah, one of those two I think we're gonna get. Yeah, it's coming out in like 2 weeks. So
It might even be one of those
Or
things where it's
even
like, oh, it's
it's out
available
now.
that day. Yeah, right.
yeah, it's on the floor. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
absolutely. They could do that. And I wouldn't be surprised. Quite frankly, I feel like Starfinder's been ready for a while. The playtest document that we got, it was lacking a lot of stuff. Like it didn't have the ship rules yet, but it
And
was.
they did.
Go ahead.
They did a second round of playtesting with some additional classes
Yeah.
as well later. I mean, they've done a few rounds of playtesting since we playtested it, which
Yeah,
was really
absolutely.
fun, by the way, Matt. I loved
Yeah,
that game.
I think if I'd known we were as close as we are, I would have suggested doing another Starfinder roleplay, and I still might, because I do think it's a fun game. Like it's
I
really
think
well realized.
I think we should revisit it when it comes out and we have the final rules for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I'm obviously in favor of that since I missed the first one. I'd like to. I'd like to see this one.
Yeah. All
I
right.
don't have much to say about the Dragon Codex. Is literally all we know about it is it's a Pathfinder book about dragons, and it's like I don't want to be crass and say it's the Draconomicon for Paizo, but that's basically what it is. It's the Book of Dragons. It's more dragon stuff, which is good. I don't mind that, but it's not as there's not much to say about it. We don't know what they're going to do with it. I just know that they're going to do it.
All right, I think we're going to move on to a little D&D news because I actually am excited about this, and I think that some other folks here might be as well. So we know we're getting another D&D book for the new Eternal, whatever they're calling it now, 5th edition Eternal or D&D Forever. But it's the Eberron Forge of the Artificer. Go ahead.
It's D&D. It's D&D 5e. It's still
Yeah.
D&D 5e. It's
No matter what they say, we're all going to call it 5e.
Forever.
But yeah, so it's a new Eberron book, Forge of the Artificer, and from what we know about it, it's going to have four revised Artificer subclasses with one new subclass, the Cartographer, which I think is interesting. 5 revised species, 17 backgrounds, 28 feats, mostly relating to dragon marks, new spells, bastions, and magic items, 3 distinct campaign templates for building fantasy noir, political thriller, and pulp adventure campaigns in the world of Eberron, which, if you listen to our Murder on the Eberron Express, the setting, this world is ripe for it. And then we get 20 new monsters, each inspired by a campaign model. I'm actually really excited about that. I don't know about you guys.
I didn't know it was
Artificers.
coming. Yeah, Liz. I knew Liz was going to say that. Go ahead, Liz.
I love them. Yeah, well, it's coming out in August, so we have a few months. And actually, there are 5 subclasses. With the one of them is new. The Cartographer is new, but there are 5 in total. And I am just so excited. Which of you is going to run a game where I can play an artificer? That's my question. That's the
I'll do
most
it.
important question I have.
Every
Okay.
single time I will run a game for you to play an artificer. I know you love artificer. That's why it's in the opening of this podcast.
I know.
I'm very
so
excited to see what the Cartographer Artificer does. That's yep. I love
And
that.
this-
I love that whole concept just from the name alone.
This also flows into the next news item you have on here, Joe, about
Does which I'm very
the
excited about.
Unearthed Arcana.
Yeah.
Has an Unearthed Arcana with new horror subclasses, and I opened this up because I love me some weird subclasses, and the first one on the list is an Artificer subclass called Reanimator,
Yeah.
in which you
You get a little buddy.
you reassemble corpses to raise the dead
Yeah.
with that Artificer style. I am into this also.
Your Frankenstein, your Reanimator, your Herbert, like it fits into that. Like it's really, really cool. I love horror themes in role playing games. I know Matt generally doesn't, or at least has said that.
My problem with doing horror themes in an adventure style game is boiled down to the problem with, like, if you take an H.P. Lovecraft story and let Robert E. Howard write it.
Yeah.
The second that you have like a 15th level barbarian involved, he does not care how scary you are. It's like having Doom Guy show up. If Doom Guy shows up, the demon is, I am a terrifying skin-wearing monstrosity. Yeah, I'm just going to hit you until I figure out what kills you.
Yeah, which is fair. But
You're
I
not
mean,
afraid at all? So, that's my thing on that. But I do still love having gore and horror stuff in my games. I just like watching them get killed.
Which is fair.
I will say that the Reanimator is a perfect artificer idea.
Yes.
But I think the cartographer is more interesting because I keep thinking about
yes.
do they map out an area and gain special magical powers from that? Can they alter the area? Can they, by drawing a map and then adding in a land feature that's not there, can they make a hill shoot up? How is this going to work? I am down for the cartographer. I want to see more. I want to see a summoner who's something like the naturalist. Imagine that if you you're out there taking detailed sketches of animals in your book, and then later on you can just open the book and throw a whole flock of sturges at someone. That would be really cool and something you could do with the Artificer has a lot of room to go. I've always liked that about it.
Mm-hmm. And it's not the only one, right? Go ahead, Liz.
The Artificer in general is a new class to D&D. I mean, it's not a new class, but it's newer than the other classes. And it always had fewer subclasses than most of the rest. So I am so excited to see new options here. I'm just going to keep saying that. Carry on, Joe.
No, go right ahead. And I'm excited for it too. And there's other ones here as well that I think add some new subclasses to some that I think need a little more variety as well. One is the Bard gets the College of Spirits. I love the Bard class in concept, but I feel like a lot of its subclasses were very skewed a very specific way. And something like this, I think, is really, really cool. Including it's just the idea of summoning a spirit and then based off of your bardic inspiration die type, it's what type of spirit it can be, which I think is really, really there's the Grave Domain, which is an old favorite for clerics. It's coming back. They've reworked it here, which is nice to actually see it come back because I think Baldur's Gate 3 has a lot to do with this because that's one of the things that you can be in Baldur's Gate, and a lot of people will respec Shadowheart into it. The Ranger gets the Hollow Warden, which is basically being a hunter of undead, which we had before, but this is a reworking of it. Think of it sort of very close to your Simon Belmonts of D&D. So you get a little bit of that. The Rogue gets the Phantom, which of course makes perfect sense. You become the Knight. Sorcerers get Shadow Sorcery. Warlocks get Undead Patron. And I think that's it. I don't think Wizards get anything. But it's just go ahead.
It's a lot of reworks. It is. The Artificer one stood out to me, not just because I love Artificers, though I do. It was, that one's, I don't think we've seen that one before. And some of these others we've seen ideas of them or previous unearthed arcana or things like that they're drawing from or improving on.
I'll say the Hexblade is vastly improved, both because it's previously Hexblade was one of those ones where you really had to kind of do your own interpretation because they were tied to one specific patron. Whereas now they've kind of been freed of that, and since a lot of their base features were baked into Pact of the Blade where they should have been to begin with, that kind of gave them the room to actually make the Hexblade its own thing, as opposed to the thing Paladins took one level in as a multi-class. So they only had to concentrate on one stat. I like what they did with that too. Warlocks got 2 patrons. Wizards did not get the Necromancer, much to my surprise. But I think Necromancer might have been one of the 4 that was in the core book. Anyway,
I think it is, yeah.
Yeah, I will correct you about one thing, though. The Hollow Warden is completely new now. They don't have anything to do with undead anymore. They're just spooky forest dudes who transform when they cast Hunter's Mark, since the class is entirely around Hunter's Mark. They grow they grow bark armor and unnerve people, and they can hit people and drain life. They're like spooky forest monsters now.
Even better.
Yeah, it's a cool one. It's if you wanted to play a ranger, but a weird ranger, here you go.
So I think we'll move on. The next one, Astra Arcanum. I think this was another Matt one, so I'll let him talk about it.
Yeah, I was looking at stuff completely unrelated to it just because I was browsing Backerkit and Kickstarter. And I don't know if you guys know Matee's creations. In Canada, it's pronounced Matee. I don't know in Turkey, though. They're in Istanbul, so I don't know how they pronounce Matee there.
One's constant.
But regardless. But Nobody's business but the Turks, man. But the thing about it that caught my eye is they've done a bunch of 5e D&D books called something Arcanum, like Hidden Arcanum or whatever. So I saw this and I thought it was going to be a D&D game, but it isn't. It's like, it's obviously science fantasy. It's
40K
space
coded.
opera.
It's very 40K coded.
Yeah, it is very 40K coded. It feels like 40K's like ambitious younger brother. But regardless of that, the thing I found interesting was, first off, that they also have a thing on their website about how they'll basically make your game for you. Like if you have an idea for a game and you want to pay them, they'll do all the work and then there's your game. None of the stuff they're selling on their site is that. Like it's all their stuff, but they also have this thing on where they're kind of like a pay. Remember they used to have like pay for publishing type setups before the internet happened and everyone just outsourced it to Amazon. It's not too different from that. But which I thought was interesting and not something I'd want to avail myself of. But the stuff that they put out under their own aegis, it's all like 4 or 5 star, and it all almost always funds at like 1,000% of what they asked for or more.
They're gold award winning any studio, aren't they? Like
for their Hidden Arcanum type stuff, they put out some really good 5e like supplemental products. But this is their first, that I can tell, their first unique independent RPG. It kind of felt a little bit like, do you remember like Castle Falkenstein?
Yeah.
If you took Castle Falkenstein and some 40K and some like some of that
Fallout 2 here, because it's got the targeted, it's got like the VAT system type stuff.
That's the other thing is like it felt like, Liz, you have that Fallout RPG you mentioned us running. And I said,
I do not
signed
have
up.
it.
Well, no,
I meant
you mentioned it, and then I said, "Oh, I can run that."
I'm into it. Yes.
Yeah, I have the rules. It's a better VATS than the VATS in Fallout.
I was just going to say that it does the thing that I was just talking about at the beginning of this, which is it takes that system that they put in tabletop and makes it better.
It iterates on it in a way that makes it much more
accessible.
Like you understand, this is assisted targeting. This is something that helps you hit things,
specific
and it's really
areas,
good. Yeah, it's really good. So yeah, I wanted to mention it just because I saw this and thought, I don't want this to sink. And then, of course, I looked at how much money it's made, and I'm like, okay, never mind. It's
okay.
It's only been up for a few days, and it's already like $200,000 at like against their target of $40,000. So yeah, that's Canadian money. I don't know the actual American, but regardless, it's well and truly funded with a month to go. Any money they get now is just gravy. They're going to be making this, but it is really it's a different feeling than what I've seen from a lot of stuff. It has a very, I don't want to call it doesn't feel grim, like, it doesn't feel like, grim and gritty or, gore punk or whatever you want to call it, but it does feel like it's very much about taking an idea to the extreme. Like, what if you have unfettered capitalism? What if you have unfettered body modification? What if you've had it for hundreds of years? What if you have magic? And so it's got a lot of the feel of a lot of games I've really loved, like Shadowrun or Cyberpunk or, again, 40K. And then yet it still kind of feels like its own weird little thing. Like, it almost feels like Elizabethan fiction. So yeah, I'm H.G. Wells could have written some of this, or Jules Verne. And that's the weirdest little taste. And that's why I really thought it was cool. So yeah, I put it in there because partially just because I'm impressed with Métis Creations just track record on Kickstarter. Like, seriously, like with our last thing funded 1,500% of what they asked for. And they've all done at least 1,000. That's like, yikes. That's something. So yeah, I put that in there. I hoped we would talk about it, and we did. So yeah, there we go.
A couple other things I do want to call out real quick, and then I'll let you all talk about anything that you want to round us out. But we did talk about Blades in the Dark earlier. We brought that up when we were talking about Daggerheart. There is a new book up on itch.io, which is Blades in the Dark Deep Cuts. It's a setting and system expansion for the Blades in the Dark game. There is an ability to get the full bundle of both the original Blades in the Dark and the Deep Cuts bundle for a reduced price. Otherwise, the new book is going for, looks like $12. And looks like there is going to be a physical print run of it at some point in the near future. But it's going to be 27 factions, 100 heritage and background packages to flesh out characters, 13 new innovations and technology to reflect the ongoing industrial age of the game itself, giving it a more flexible and impactful harm and trauma rule, which I think is really neat. A modified advancement system so you can customize the rate at which characters progress. Because one of the things that is interesting about Blades is failure breeds learning, like most Powered by the Apocalypse games. But people learn at relatively different rates because of the rates of failure. So you can have one person who had much more XP than another, and it looks like they're trying to do what some of the other game systems like Avatar and some of the others have been doing, which is adjust that so that it makes a little more sense. Diceless downtime now instead of just regular like rolling for it, which I think is really, really good. A system for debt, modifying the load system, and a new action system which overhauls and streamlines the action resolution mechanics to make combat and things of that nature easier and more streamlined. I'm all for all of this, and I love Blades in the Dark, so yes, this is an instant purchase for me. I think I'm going to kick it over to Phil because I know Phil has opinions about Blades.
Yeah, I had the digital version of this. I haven't picked up or backed the physical version, but if I find it in a store, I will almost certainly get it. I've heard John Harper describe this book as essentially the game he wished he'd written.
Yeah.
Or almost like a Blades in the Dark, like an actual full second edition with deep cuts. I think this. So my unfettered opinion of Blades is I think it is a really good game, and I think it is a game that is really bad at teaching you how to run it.
Yes.
And I really think, yeah, it's like, if you want to learn to play Blades in the Dark, go pick up Scum and Villainy instead, because they did a much better job telling you how to run a Forged in the Dark game. But with deep cuts, I feel like this makes Blades a lot more approachable, and the extra rule systems Joe mentioned at the end are also modular, which is cool. So like if you want to use like the modified advancement system, so everybody kind of advances at the same rate, but you still want to have dice rolling and downtime, because sometimes that can be a cool way to like cause like a cliffhanger or some trouble that pulls in the next thing for your crew. Like they're modular rule systems. You can pull in the parts you want and keep them, and keep the ones you don't, or you know what I mean. Keep the ones you like and use the ones that you think are better out of deep. I really like the increased number of heritage and background packages, because previously, if I remember, there were about 8. So it's interesting to see characters get fleshed out a little more, because one of the things that I've heard people complain about Blades in the Dark is characters don't feel really distinctive, because you're not making a lot of actual choices at character creation. So this kind of gives you another one to kind of tweak your character and make somebody that you're excited to play. It's interesting. I really enjoy deep cuts. I'm really glad it's coming out in physical form, because I really do like having these books in physical form.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it is on Kickstarter for a physical print run, but it will no doubt show up in stores, because Evil Hat is really good at keeping physical copies of their books on store shelves.
Yeah, and I can vouch for that. Like they will work with whatever store they can to get you those books as quickly as they can. Like even if they do a Kickstarter where they don't have for some reason they don't have a retailer tier, if you reach out to them, they will make one for you on the back end. So like I'm really happy with them, and I can guarantee you that I will have many copies of this physical in my store.
I will. So it is actually. I'll correct myself. It is actually on Backerkit right now.
Yes.
26 days left. It has reached $129,000 out of the original goal of 30,000.
It's beloved for a reason.
Yeah, there's a lot. There's a really cool looking limited edition. There's big maps of Duskfall. It's just and there is an actual set of just playing cards with Blades in the Dark themed fronts and backs, which is just kind of a cool thing.
We also, just moving on real quick, and I just wanted to mention this because I thought this was really funny. Do you like Monty Python? Would you like to play a Monty Python tabletop role-playing game? Because you can. Apparently, we are going to be getting a Monty Python tabletop role-playing game that is based off the silliness that was their humor, and it's not just the Holy Grail, although that is something that is referenced in there, but it's Monty Python's co-curricular medieval reenactment program. Uh, while most of it does focus on the Holy Grail, it actually covers parts of the BBC TV series, live performances, albums, other movies like The Life of Brian. So it's really, really interesting, and it's from it. Their Exalted Funeral is doing the physical print run stuff for it. So it's going to be pretty. Like there's already like a leather bound tome, like they call it the public school edition, that looks like the old public school books that you used to get. And 100% I'm getting my hands on this. So
I appreciate that the regular one is called the Sensible Middle Class Edition by comparison.
and the other one comes with 6.2% more spam. So yeah,
This sure is a thing.
It is a thing, and I think
it can be pretty nasty.
But I'll turn it over to you guys. What do you want to finish? Like, we have a bunch of other stuff that we could have gotten to, but we're just running out of time. Anything that you guys want to highlight or talk about? I'll kick it over to Liz first.
We've talked about artificers. Does anyone want to keep talking about artificers? There's a lot going. We hit the things I'm excited about. So, though now I am reading up more on Blades in the Dark in another browser tab.
Yes, Matt.
This one is one of like I found it on a site that I like reading, but that I am aware has a really strong left bias, and I keep in mind I have a strong left bias. I freely admit this, but apparently Goodman Games is still working with Judges Guild after they got into a lot of trouble for working with Judges Guild, because the person who owns Judges Guild is very, I don't know how to say this. He has made what would appear to most people to be extremely racist, extremely anti-Semitic statements. He's made the statements. You can decide what they mean, but that's certainly the take most people seem to have on it. And they had basically been like, okay, we're not going to work with somebody who says things like this. And then they continued to work with somebody who said things like this. So that's a problem. You know, you're seeing it on the N-World forums. You're seeing it on Wobble Rocket. People are talking about it. The fact that they went back because they just had to publish more City State of the Invincible Overlord stuff. I'm going to be upfront. Is anybody younger than me that into City States of the Invincible Overlord that they think you should go ahead and risk it? Like, how much of an audience do you think you have for this game? I mean, I barely remember City States of the Invincible Overlord, and I'm older than Dungeons and Dragons. Like, I am 53, going to be 54 this year. D&D just turned 50. I was a small child, but I remember 1980 when the City State originally came out. I was playing D&D.
It was 76, wasn't it, when the first stuff came out?
For D&D or for City State?
For City State.
I don't think City State came out. I think they had the Invincible Overlord stuff coming out before, but I think the actual published mega adventure City State of the Invincible Overlord was in the 80s. But I could be wrong. But my point just being, I can't imagine most people buying D&D game stuff now even remember it. And yet they're going to town. You're like, yeah, we're going to publish more stuff with this guy, and please ignore the anti-Semitic things he says.
Yeah, it's an interesting choice, but part of me also wonders how much of it is they already had a contract in place they couldn't drop or get out of.
Maybe. So, like I said, I just find it's one of those things where I saw it and I felt this didn't get mentioned.
Apparently part of it is just, so this thing has been reprinted over and over from 76. The most recent attempt was in 2014 when Judges Guild actually ran a failed Kickstarter for it. And that's part of the current thing is Goodman Games wants to try to make this available to people again, which I've read through City State of the Invincible Overlord. I do not understand the obsession with this module, other than that it's old and it was good in 76.
Well, basically, it's one of those times.
But the thing is, Yeah, so after Bob Blitzall Jr., the head, maybe only guy of Judges Guild back in 2020, made his extremely anti-Semitic comments, Goodman Games swore off working with him, and would not work any products of Judges Guild that they were still selling. They donated the money to charity. Apparently, what they're planning to do with this one is to give zero money to Judges Guild again, but they're going to instead use this to refund the people who backed it on Kickstarter in 2014 because they never got a refund. But the big problem is some people are saying that this could technically open the door for Judges Guild to regain access to Kickstarter, which they don't have. And And then there's some other stuff that's come up about Bloodsaw like posted a big screed, which was which amounted to why is there politics in games? Anyway, here's my politics, and also they've been working with us all along. Which Bloodsaw apparently has a tendency to stretch the truth, and apparently a lot of the info in his gigantic now deleted screed is in fact false. But I don't know. I mean, good on Goodman Games for wanting to pay back people who got, their money taken by a racist in 2014 for nothing. But like, no, just don't. No module is worth doing this. No. I disagree with what's going on here, and that's where I'll leave it.
Yeah, I think we're all in the same camp, at least there. And then I guess I'll ask Phil then, since we've covered that. Is there anything you would like to talk about? Call it good.
Not that I can think of. Look forward to our next Tavern Watch plays. Yeah, it'll be good.
I'm excited for it as and yeah. So if we've covered everything, I don't think I have anything that I haven't, because I got to talk about all the things I wanted to, because I was running the joint. So I think we'll just call it there. But I do want to thank you for joining us. Again, Blizzard Watch, Tavern Watch, and all of our imprints are made possible due to generous contributions at patreon.com/BlizzardWatch. Your continued support allows us to continue to grow and do shows like this and other content. If you have questions for this or any of our podcasts, be sure to send those in. You can hit us up to podcast@blizzardwatch.com, specify the show that it is for, as well as any special pronunciation of your name. You can also hit us up on Discord. We have the Q and Podcast Questions channel, which is open for everybody. We also have the Patreon Q and Podcast Questions channel, where we tend to look there first as a way of saying thank you for helping us keep the lights on. And then if you do subscribe to Patreon, you can send us messages or topics through Patreon. And not only do you get that, but all of our content, you get it ads free. Like, how cool is that? You also get it earlier than everybody else. How cool is that? Like, it's really neat. You should support us. We like making stuff. But yeah, I think that's it. Friends, until next time, may all of your hits be crits.